tutorial will show you how to write a report that sorts by individual and organizational name in the same column. That is, that sorts by individual contact's last name if it's an individual contact and organization name if it's an organization, all in the same column in the same sort. Without adding the special formulas that I'll show you today, a report normally would have individual contact name in one column and organization name in another column, and the system would you'd sort by one of those fields and the other. So you might sort all the individuals first, then the organization separate, or secondly. This method that I'm going to show you today will let you sort those all together. We also can get fancy by adding these letter dividers at the top of each section. So here I've got the letter A, and then these are all my A names. As I scroll through to the next page, I should find some B's, and here's my B and my B section. So to create this report, from your dashboard, we're going to go into Enhanced Reports on the main menu. We're going to create a new report. Most of these steps will be similar or the same as you would take to write any old report, but we're going to drop in a couple of special formulas. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to write a new standard report. I believe you could do this from an express report as well. We're going to go ahead and we're going to give the report a name. So let's call this example of contacts sorted together. I'm going to drop down the Nonprofit Easy drop-down list here, and you should see a folder with your organization's name. You'll click on that to save your report in that folder. You can give the report a description to explain what you were writing, who wrote it, when they wrote it, why they wrote it. Then when I click on Next, I'm going to go to my Categories tab. I need to include the formulas that I'm going to include use the individual or organizational contact field. This is a field that records whether or not a contact record is an individual or an organization. That field is found on the contact table inside the contact category. So you must have this contacts table on your report. From here I could add any other fields or categories that I wanted. If I was writing a donation report, for instance, I could add donations. For this example, I think I will do that, so I'm going to drop in my donations. But you could write a membership report, an event attendance report, any kind of report that you wanted. Once you have your categories, you're going to click Next. Now on my Sorts tab, this is where the magic is going to happen. So we're going to tell the system to sort first by the first letter of the contact's last name, if it's an individual, or the first letter of the organizational name, if this is an organizational contact. Then we're going to tell it, after you've sorted by first letter, then sort by the actual name. Sort by last name of individuals and organization name of organizations. So we're going to add two sorts here. So the first one, we're going to be on our contact table. We're going to add that individual or organization field and drag it over. And then we're going to click on the formula or function editor here, this little FX, and we're going to bring up the formula or function editor. We're going to drop in an if-then statement. If this is an individual contact record, take the first letter of the contact's last name, and if it's an organizational contact record, take the first letter of the organization's name. So to do that, we're going to drop in this under the logical, an if statement. Now, you can just type the syntax here if you know it. I could just type this whole thing out because I actually do know the syntax by heart. Or you can use the formula builder here, click the building blocks, and build it that way. Now, my field name was already here because I had dragged it over. And this has to be inside the parentheses, actually. This is why it's giving me a little error message, you'll notice. When I these little squiggly red lines underneath mean I have a boo-boo in my formula. And when I hover over it, it tells me what's going on and saying, hey, your closing parentheses are in the wrong place. So I'm actually just going to delete right now, delete that parenthesis and those commas. So now I've got if, open parenthesis, if contact record is individual organization, and I'm going to say equals, open quote, I, close quote, so if it equals individual, then, which is comma in an if-then statement, then I want you to take the first letter, and now we're going to drop in a second formula. We're going to nest formulas here. And left is a string function, so I'm going to just drag that in. Take left of contact last name, so I take the first letter of the last name, so I'm going to say take left last name. So left means take the left number of characters that I specify from this field. So in this case I'm saying take the left characters from last name and then you put a comma and how many characters you want. In this case I want the left one or the first character on the left of last name if the contact type is individual. Otherwise, which is comma again in an if-then statement, take the left of organization name. And of that, I want 1. And make sure I've closed all my parentheses. I opened a parenthesis, then I opened another parenthesis, and I closed one. I opened one, I closed one, and then I closed the original one. Writing formulas is just like writing expressions in algebra. If you open a parenthesis, you must close a parenthesis. If anything goes awry in your report and you've used a function or a formula, the first thing you always want to check is that you've closed all your parentheses. So, just double checking one last time. If the contact record type is individual, then take the first character from the left of the last name. Otherwise, take the first character from the left of the organization name. Okay, so that's my first sort. My second, I'm going to drag this over again, where I want to sort by the actual name. Once I've sorted by the first letter, we're going to do the same thing. Click on the FX. We're going to go in here, and we're going to add another if statement again. So we're going to drop in our if, get rid of all the stuff that goes afterwards. So if contact type individual organization equals individual, then I want to sort by contact last name. Otherwise, comma, otherwise, sort by organization name. And then close my parenthesis. Okay. Now, if you're a little bit lost here and you don't remember this syntax or kind of how to build this, the good news is in our support tutorial library, we do have an FAQ or FAQ on how to write this report with step-by-step instructions, including the syntax of this formula. And all you have to do is copy and paste the formulas in these two sort orders into the appropriate field here. So we have done that for you and provided you for that as well. Now that I've got all my sorts here, I'm going to hit next. Now here are my filters. I could add any filters to this report if I wanted to. I could just leave it blank at this point, but since I'm writing a donation report, let's go ahead and filter on my donation date just for an example, and also to maybe slim down this report and my data and make it run a little faster here for this tutorial purposes. So I'm saying show me any donations that were made in 2016. Now I'm going to click next again. And now finally on this layout tab, I'm going to pick all the fields I want to see on my final report. I'm going to pick contact ID just as a reference field, but then I probably want maybe their address and city, state. I could pick zip code if I wanted, but now I'm going to pick donation because I want to see my donation amount and the date. And I can see donation gift type. Is it an in-kind or cash? And then also I'm going to pick that individual or organizational contact field so I can see which contacts are individuals and which are orgs. That looks really good and lots of data. Now you'll notice here the one field I didn't pick was contact name or organization name. Because in my final report, I want that to be one field. And if I pick those fields, those are two separate fields in my database, right? Organization name is down here, and then contact, last name and first name is two separate fields, or I could pick contact name, which is a special field that contains first and last name. But those are still going to be two different places, right, on my report, two different columns, and I want them in one column. So on my final report layout, I'm going to have to make a special field. I'm going to have to make a blank column and insert a formula, the same formula I inserted on my sorts, to pull the names, whether it's an organization or an individual, into the same column. So I'm not selecting name here. So now I'm going to hit finish. The report's going to work for a second and pull all of the information I've specified together and kind of build the structure of the report and drop me into my layouts. So now if I ran this report just as is, it would be pretty good. I don't have the name field on it yet, but just to show you where we're at, to give you a little grounding, what we're going to have now is a report that's going to be sorted, and this is why I've included the contact ID, so you can see these 3 donations were made by the same person, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by this person, 2 by this person, 1. So you can kind of see, and these are actually sorted by name, but we don't have the name on the report yet, but we can see here are in-kind or cash gifts, and who's an individual and who's an organization. So now if we go in, and we're going to add that name field with that function, that formula. So all I'm going to do is right-click on this column A, and I'm going to insert a column before. And in this cell right here, I'm going to put that name sort that we did, our second formula that we entered on our sorts tab. Now I can double-click right here, and I could type equals, and I could actually just type the formula if I know the syntax, or I can click in there, click my FX, and go in and build using the formula editor. So again, it's an if-then statement. Hopefully at this point you guys probably can recite it by heart now, right? So what is it? If individual or organization equals I, then, in this case I want to use contact name because I want the first and last name in the field. Before, previously we had used last name because we're sorting by last name, but in this case to display the name I want to see the first and last. Otherwise, which is a comma, what is it? Organization name. And drop that in, and we make sure we've got an open parenthesis, close parenthesis, okay. If I have done this correctly, when I write it now, you will see the first column will include the name. And here we go. So Addis Ababa, Acme, and you'll see AB, AC, and then Abigail Adams, AD, AL, AM, AME. And so as you can see, whether it's an individual or an organization, this is all in one column, and it's sorted alphabetically. Now this is a pretty good report, and this especially if we were going to do a mailing list from this or whatnot. We could leave it like this if we wanted. But if we want to get super fancy, and we want to do have these headers, we want to have each name maybe appear once, and we want these headers with these letters, we're going to add some group headers to this report. So we're going to make it fancy. So we're going to close the display and go back into the edit here. And I'm just going to right click over here in the first column, the section column, and I'm going to add a section, and I'm going to add a group header. The first group header I'm going to add is off of that first sort field where I'm taking the left one character, the first character from the left, because the first character from the left is going to be that letter of the alphabet. So I'm going to group on that letter and say OK. It's going to insert a section. And now to actually display that letter, I need to add my formula, this same exact formula that's here in the header, into one of these rows, which is what actually displays. So I could, again, double click here and type equals and type the formula, or I can just highlight the cell, hit the formula editor, and we're going to go if individual organization equals an individual, then, and then we're going to take our left function, take the left one of last name, left one, otherwise, comma, take the left one of organization name, one, close parenthesis, close parenthesis. So just double checking here. Otherwise, take open parenthesis, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, close parenthesis. Okay, hopefully. All right, so if I've done this correctly, now I'm going to bold this, and I'm actually going to, I'm just holding down the Shift key and selecting all these. I'm going to add some background shading to make it a little easier to see on my final report what we're talking about, so you can see. So now that first letter of last name or organization for name should be bolded and have blue background, and there should be a section before we start each of the names or name groupings by letter of the alphabet. All right, so ta-da, here's my letter A. Now if I scroll down, these are still A names. We'll go to page 2. Now, something seems to have gone awry. Oh, there we go. I don't know why that cut off on that page, but actually, so here's my B's on page 3, and B's, and then I think my report's still loading is why this is running a little slow. Let's see, Bruce, still lots of, and then C's, etc. So now this is still pretty good. This is pretty awesome. But if we want the name to each appear once, each person or organization name to appear once instead of repeated per line, and the same with like the address, maybe we just want the address once, we don't need it repeated over and over, then we're going to add a second group header to our report. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to right click anywhere over here in the section column. We're going to add a section. We're going to add a group header. And we're going to group header on that second formula, which is the name. The first one is the first letter, and then this one's actually done the name. So we'll say put a header on the name. And then I'm going to take anything I only want to see once and add it from the details section to that header section. So I'm going to take, this is the name display, and I'm just going to click on it and drag it up there. And I'm going to put the address up there and the city and the state. And then I could actually put this contact type as up there as well. And so now down here, the only thing, let's put the contact ID. The only thing that's now in my details section is the details of their donations. And so now again, if I run this report, we've got the letter A, we've got Addis Ababa, his address and his contact ID and the fact that he's an individual, and then the details of his donations here, then Acme, their information, and the details of their donations, etc. Now I could go in and I could start getting fancy, and I could put in alternate row shading if I wanted to make this a little bit easier, or I could add underlines. I could go in and format these donation amounts as currency, etc. But hopefully now, based on this, you understand how to get all of your contact names in one column on your reports, and also to add those section breaks. As I said, we do have a step-by-step tutorial in the tutorial library that contains all of these steps written out, including the formulas you need, which you can then just copy and paste into the appropriate area to make it a little easier. As always, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to send us a support ticket by emailing us at support@fundly.com. Thank you.